Hi.
Hi. We made it.
We made it. All right.
All right. So welcome again to another live LinkedIn learning session. If you love alliteration, then you're already in. But once again, I am Nikki Ivy. I am Chief Revenue Officer at Inclusive, and I thrive at the corner of career and culture. So that is what brings me here. And this lovely woman you see here is the CEO and founder of Inclusive, Jen Graham. Jen, welcome back for another week in live learning.
So excited. It's always fun hanging out with you.
So today we're going to be talking about how to have tough conversations at work, right? Because we know that it's a thing that people avoid. But what we've learned is, right, that avoidance of having those conversations is actually going to have a more negative effect than just leaning in and having those conversations. But you got to know how first. So today we'll be talking through 10 tips that will set you up for success to be able to have these conversations in a way that is, say it with me, safe, easy, and productive. So Jen, and this will just be a conversation, right, between the two of us. And I think we should start with, I just want you to tell the folks here, why do you think folks are so scared of even thinking about having these conversations at work? I guess you could just define a tough conversation so people know exactly what we're talking about.
Yes. So when we talk about tough conversations, or some may call them courageous conversations or candid conversations, basically it's about how do we engage people in meaningful dialogue around topics that are perhaps outside of the normal work topics, but such as racial justice or mental health or even well-being or sustainability, but topics that, because let's be real, we're in this political environment that we're in, almost everything feels like a hot topic, right. Whether it's even women in leadership or whatever, however. I mean, just the what we've gone through as a country and as a world has been pretty traumatic over the past few years and several years. So I think what we need to do is recognize that people are human. We are human beings, and the people that work with you are also human. And when we hear or see something on the news or something strikes our close family or community, it affects us and it affects our work, and we bring that with us. And especially now that we're mostly remote, or we're still, majority still working in a remote environment, or will in the future in a hybrid. A lot of us are still working in those home environments that where it's difficult to separate work from home, and we bring those experiences with us into our workplace. So all that to say is that it's important to address and acknowledge the struggles that we are wrestling with, and also be able to help shepherd and guide those conversations and more productively, to harness that energy of fear and pull it into actual enlightenment and courage and support. And I think once we realize that people care, that our leaders care, that we care about each other, that what's going on, and that we are there to support each other, our sense of belonging increases dramatically. Our sense of community and commitment to our work and to our peers. Because again, why people may join a company is for the mission or for the vision, but they stay because of the people. And they stay because they feel connected to their team members and they get to know them. And so these tough conversations are a vehicle, a way to help strengthen those relationships in the workplace, to deepen understanding of each other, and to help open up ways and ideas for how to move forward and create more purpose and alignment, both personally and professionally, through the actions that come out as part of the conversations. Anyway, all the things.
So much, right? The support part is what really makes me key in, because as we've talked about before, I very much see what we do at Inclusive as a way to support the professionals, right? Those in the HR space, employee engagement, ERG leaders, and of course DEI leaders. I don't take for granted that everybody has the, the privilege of working at an organization where these things are constantly being championed by leadership, or where they have access to resources to really be able to pull this stuff off, right? And that's why, right? That's why we're having this conversation today. So what I want to do is I will go through and we'll just list these tips, right, that we've come up with that are intended to, again, make these conversations less scary, make you feel super confident about it. But I don't believe we'll be able to get through explaining each of them. So we'll talk through as many as we can. But I'm going to go ahead and list those 10 tips right now. And they are defining what success looks like, identifying your stakeholders, creating a brave space by implementing ground rules, super important, use impartial language, kick off with relevant icebreakers, ensure that everyone has equal time to speak, make sure your conversation is structured, end with a clear call to action, and follow up with appreciation. So that's a lot. Jen, I won't ask you to go down the list, but maybe pick a few of those that you think are missed a lot, or that you think just are super important when it comes to this stuff.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll start at the top. I think the first one was around setting clear
Defining what success looks
like. Defining what success looks like. And I think that's from when DEI leaders or HR managers are thinking about expanding courageous conversations beyond their C-suite or their leadership team, really thinking about the why. And it makes me when we think about the power of these conversations, it boils back down to what you said, Nikki, which is the relationships, the support, and the goal. And so thinking of what is your intention in creating these opportunities for conversation? Is it about building trust through greater transparency and demonstrating courage and vulnerability? Is the goal to help create a psychological safe community or safe culture where people feel like they can speak up and be more vulnerable or be more brave when they have an idea and they can share and they know that it's going to be received in a manner that is professional? And then the other concept is like, are you trying to help raise awareness around a particular gap that you may have? Maybe you did a survey and you realized, we need to do some work around microaggressions, or maybe people don't necessarily have shared language around allyship. And so it's an opportunity to really hone in on a particular topic and raise the level of conscious understanding of the topic and be able to really apply it to their everyday. Or is the intention about really driving specific action or identifying leaders to help raise their hand and run an ERG group, or to identify or recruit ERG members? So I think there are a plethora of opportunities to really harness the power of structured conversation to really meet different needs or intentions. Again, as a summary, it's either just creating team building and connection and bonding, which is in itself so valuable, especially today where most companies have been able to translate work to digital and remote and hybrid environments, but it's how do you transfer that human connection when we're remote? And so, just keeping culture alive, like just having these conversations is a way to do that, to deepen the relationships and understanding, and just to get to know your colleagues on a different level. And so that's core. Or it's about raising awareness around an issue or topic that really needs to be fundamentally addressed in order to build that culture and build trust and that psychological safety. Or is it around like action and trying to motivate and mobilize people around either an idea or initiative or movement, or maybe a CSR initiative or so forth. So.
And of course, for most people, right, it's going to be a combination of those things, right? It's going to mostly boil down to like these three umbrellas of attracting, talent, supporting that talent, retaining that talent. But I want to make sure we catch what you were saying in giving all of these examples. I think what you are highlighting is that not every organization is going to or needs to have the same goals, right? That would miss the point. But again, I can imagine, right? And I speak with folks in this situation every day. I am an up and coming, right, employee engagement leader, or an up and coming. I just got my SHRM certification like 6 months ago, right? And I want to bring these things to I understand that I want to advance culture at my organization, but when I'm looking at what the goals are of folks who work at companies much larger, right? Those tend to not be the same, right? As if I'm at a startup, for instance, and the the challenges are different depending on the size of the organization. And as you said, the goals, right? I mean, again, I speak with folks every day. Some of them come in and they're like, yeah, we're doing a great job with gender equity, but there are other demographics that are missing, right? Whereas another company might have the inverse problem. So suffice it to say, defining success from the very beginning is super important. Which of these others, Jen, do you want to make sure we touch on today?
Yeah, I think the next most important one is really in setting the ground rules, and that is what I think separates an inclusive conversation from just another Zoom meeting or just another team meeting. It really setting the ground rules and creating that expectation of what a brave space means. And when we give our host training, we really dive deep into this and what it means to create this psychologically safe space. And what it includes is making sure, well, first of all, making sure that people are fully present, especially in the hybrid environment. It's easy to have 15 windows open and Slack messages up. So just be fully committed to this hour or an hour and a half, whatever time has been designated. Also be fully present on camera. It's great if you're hosting virtually to make sure that you still maintain that sense of language and empathy is really transmitted through visual communication, and that facial expressions are really crucial for us to interpret what people are really saying in a deeper way. And then I would say also just the vulnerability. We talk about our key ground rules around leaning in, listening, thinking of it as an opportunity to learn from each other. This is an opportunity for you to learn from your peers, which research shows that is the most significant way that we retain knowledge and actually change behavior, is by hearing the stories of our peers, not necessarily our bosses, but our peers, to really be moved to change. And I know from community organizing background, like we are emotional beings, and we rationalize our irrational decisions through these ways that we are motivated and moved mostly through emotion. And so if we way that influences culture in the right way. So to your point, creating that brave space where we're there to really listen. It's not necessarily about being right, it's about getting it right. And so that mentality, we're constantly learning to show up and be vulnerable, to go deep, to be willing to be seen, is a real treat in this space. And to also we say that what is said here stays here, but what is learned here leaves here. So that again creates that trusted circle of space where it's about building each other up, about listening, about leaning in, about asking, tell me more, and really building that trust and relationships.
Yeah, I think sometimes people underestimate how far just having the right ground rules can take you in these kinds of conversations. I know for me personally, when I was learning how to host inclusive conversations, kind of a growing pain, but certainly a learning experience, right, was to let those ground rules be a guide for how to get through some of the tougher parts of the conversation. I think when you go into it and you already have a plan for what will happen or what needs to happen when maybe someone did not understand the ground rules or outright violated them. I think that, again, having something to come back to, and training, by the way, but something to come back to say, okay, I understand how to handle this. That happened. And, now it's this piece. I think one of the other pieces is impartial language, right? So yes, it's one of the tips here, but it is also just an element of what a ground rule might look like. And then it just becomes a matter of reminding people of those ground rules, and to keep the conversation on track. But again, I love that that's included here, because in conversations I'm having with a lot of these leaders, that's one of the top three things that's keeping them from thinking that they'll be able to have these conversations at their organization. And since I just mentioned the impartial language piece of it, I'm curious, I'm interested, how big a part do you think that plays in, setting yourself up for success to be able to have these conversations?
It's huge. I will say it's a brave act for a company to even allow everybody to really have a voice and have a say. And I think that's one of the innate fears that HR managers may have, is like, what if someone says something, but the reality, or that sparks something, but if whether it's happening there or it's probably happening elsewhere, if that innate fear. So it's better to at least allow that, or create a space to be able to hold that and create the brave space and allow people to embrace it and share. And we're also acknowledge that we're all on different journeys and that we're all learning. And I think if just being there and being fully present and acknowledges that we may say things that show where we are on that journey, and but if we're willing to kind of keep coming at it and keep practicing, because it is a practice, and language, especially in the DEI world, changes constantly, and so we're all learning and keeping up to date on what is the most inclusive language and how do we change culture and change with it. So I'd say implicit language, though, is really important, because we encourage our hosts, when we do host training, to use language like I statements instead of you or should. And we want to make sure that we pull people, lean in and learn and ask for more information or clarity. We definitely don't want to call people out in the moment, but we want to take opportunities if needed to be able to redirect the energy and the conversation focus back on the topic. And so we leverage the ground rules, which is around equal time to share, one voice at a time. It's not about debate or responding to people's stories or experiences. It's a chance to really listen, thank them for sharing, and be able to allow someone else to share their insights with the whole group. So we definitely, there's a line between training and then the conversations. And the conversations are intentionally designed to really move people through personal experiences, like almost shared concerns or struggles, and almost ideation for potential growth opportunities. And then lastly, kind of commitments to take responsibility, or to take action, or to improve either your individual role in it, or to take an individual role, or to take a community leadership role, and whether that's in your team or your external involvement in the community. So I think that leads to the next big one, which is about having that structured conversation, which is so crucial. So I'll let you respond.
Well, I wasn't actually going to go to that one, but I think these go hand in hand. And you kind of mentioned, right, the importance of ensuring that everyone has equal voice, right? When I think of this, I imagine, anytime you've had one of these conversations, we've all been in these meetings, sometimes it's a Zoom meeting, and there is, one or two people that tend to, whether they mean to or not, they tend to dominate the conversation. And when I found myself in those kinds of situations, whether I agreed with that person or not, I still left those conversations not feeling, as understood or as included as I would have hoped. And I think that is an element that often is missing from this particular kind of programming, right? Things that are intended to engage around these kinds of topics, they tend to be, right, one directional, right? I am talking to you, to a group of people. You all are here to listen to me. Maybe you ask some questions. But, at the end of the day, how do I know what you took from it, right? How do I know? And how do your peers know how the things we're talking about impact you, that can only happen if everybody is given equal voice. I will say one little thing too. When I'm talking about those folks that dominate the conversation, it's usually me. I talk a lot, and so having the structure, the way that our conversations are structured, it keeps me on track so that I'm making sure that everyone is giving equal voice. And speaking of equal voice, Jen, you wanted to talk about the importance of structure in these conversations.
Yeah, I love it. I love your voice, Nikki. Always keep coming up. So I would say, yeah, the power of the structured dialogue goes all the way back to the first big tip, which is really truly understanding your intentions and your goals. We always design a conversation with the end in mind, kind of designing it on to take people on a shared journey, a little bit on an emotional journey, because we talk about our past experiences and our connection to the topic that really makes it sticky and makes it personal and relatable. And that helps really gender or create trust among each other. And once, because there's that great quote that said, I don't care what you know until I know that you care. And that is baked into our model, where the first question is typically very, very personal, and it allows people to really get to know people on a deeper level so that they feel more comfortable and in that brave space to really share their real struggles or what they really think. And the second question is really getting to the heart of the matter and allowing it to breathe and to look at it from all different angles. And that's I think the beauty of really creating that space, allowing for this challenge or struggle or tension to emerge, and then being able to really look at it from all the different perspectives and voices at the table or at the virtual table. But then the key, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is that you can't stop there. You have to end it on a high note, which is about whatever that key takeaway is, or whatever that new thing that you want to apply. What's one thing tactical, tangible that you want to do? What's one vision that you want to end with, so that you go through this journey, but you end higher than you started. And we have proof of this. We know people who have been kind of like, oh, I'm feeling tired. I don't know if I can make it, but they show up, they share, and they leave feeling invigorated and passionate and excited. And that is literally just vibrating at a higher frequency. And this is what it's about. It's about finding that connection to each other, the issue, and feeling powerful about this particular topic, that you are empowered as a human and as an individual, as a team player, as a member of the community, to really create the change that you want to see.
Right. And who doesn't want a team of high vibe individuals,
Yeah,
right? I meet up. I meet up. There's another one here that I think, I think sometimes for people it could be an afterthought, and that's why I'm so glad that it's included in this list of 10 tips, and that's icebreakers, right?
Ooh,
So a lot of time you think, oh, an icebreaker, what's your favorite colors? Things like that. But the tip here actually is to use relevant icebreakers. Can you give some context around that? Maybe some examples of what a relevant icebreaker would be in this situation?
Yes. Oh gosh, I love. I think people sometimes it's especially if it's a really tough conversation that you're about to go into. It's a way to kind of lighten it up a little bit and have a little fun and get to know everybody. There's also science that shows, or studies that show, that if you get people speaking within the first 10 minutes, they're going to be more engaged. And so the icebreaker is again a quick way to get everybody a chance to really pipe in, even if it's a minute or less response. And it's also a way to just have a little fun with the topic, but depending on the gravity of it, moving into it. But one of my favorites is things, and the importance of it being relevant is, like, you don't want to be talking about mental health and be like, what's your favorite food? It's just, we want to be conscious of the kinds of icebreakers that help even try to almost like nurture or what's the right word? I was going to say fertilize. That's not right. But to create the environment or the soft soil for the deeper conversation. So you're kind of like wading into it a little bit, tiptoeing in. But one of my favorites is this team building one, which is, if you were an emoji right now, what would you be? And it's just a great kind of way to lighten it up. It's about getting to know, because that was about it's like cheers and check in. It's one way, just a fun way to create some team bonding opportunities, and it allows people to really come as they are and to show up. And you know what, I'm feeling like the one that's like the head exploding right now, or it can allow a little bit more character
Yeah.
coming to life and
No,
personification.
I love.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorites. I, of course, am a woman of many emoji feelings, so I can never pick. I can never pick just one. But you're so right. What we've seen when we use these kinds of relevant icebreakers is just like what we're seeing happen with you and I right now in real time. Right? Is people just
Yeah.
starting to loosen
Loosen
up,
up. Yeah.
starting to sort of subtly recognize commonalities, subtly
Yeah.
recognize things that they kind of dig about about
Yeah.
each other. And it is part of the structure. I think that's the part I really want to make sure that I'm driving home here is, yes, we are talking about these things, these individual tips, but the point is that you're not winging it. You're not winging it with these icebreakers. We write those, and we have a team of conversation designers,
Yeah.
rock stars, and these are the things. This is how granular we get when we're thinking about the structure that goes into these conversations, because like you said, Jen, it is meant to elicit and evoke very specific set of reactions, right? It's meant to make folks feel safe enough to share, right? It's meant to make folks feel understood when they do share, or feel included, and things like that. And something as little as an icebreaker can have the power to do that. Now, you mentioned a minute ago, you were talking about, it doesn't need to just stop there, right? When we've had the conversation, and one of the tips here is to follow up with appreciation. I think
Mm.
that it's important that, because folks will say, yes, you have to follow up. And a lot of the time that follow up is a survey, which is important. We need those insights. We do that as well. But where engagement is so
Mm.
crucial, positive reinforcement to people
Yeah.
that participate in these things it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Jen, talk a little bit about what you've seen as far as the impact of following up with appreciation.
Yes, I think just the thanking people for showing up, because there's so much so much is taking our attention and demanding our time these days. But I believe that the power of the genius within an organization is when we have people fully present and fully participating. And being at an inclusive conversation does require full participation. And it takes mental energy and even sometimes spiritual energy to be part of it, emotional energy, all of the things. So honoring that commitment and thanking them. Definitely we have that as part of our post notes, to thank people for being there in the beginning, thank them at the end. But then we have in our platform, we have automatic follow-ups that thank people for participating and immediately capture their kind of sentiment,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that they can carry this forward, whatever specific actions are identified as a result of being there. I think it's almost like creating that gratitude. Okay, this is like the secret to happiness, right? The sense of
Ooh,
gratitude.
let me
Ooh,
give
tell
me
me
a few of my
more.
listening ears on.
But they say, yeah, being grateful for what you have. And I think sometimes just knowing that people have so many competing things that they have to do. I know that's been some of the concern too with some HR leaders is, wow, an hour, that's a lot of time to take away from the business or the focus or even the team goals. But I will say it is so invigorating, and it creates such tight forms and bonds and relationships that you can't even put a price on that. And so thanking for people is crucial, thanking leadership for the ability and the time to be able to be part of these, thanking participants for being there fully present, for showing up and for sharing. It's a gift when someone shares their story with you, or like a lesson, or even just insights. And so I think thanking people for just being there is a healthy practice for us all to be kind of living into the gratitude, and that will help reap benefits beyond our imagination.
Beautiful. I couldn't have said it better, and I am not even going to step on this wonderful last thought that you just gave us. Right, we're going to 11:45, and it is that right now. What I do want to tell you all is first, thank you and appreciation for joining. Thank you so much for watching, all 7 of you who may be out there. The Woo Games team, and more folks will come, and hopefully, right, like I said, the goal is just to spread this kind of support around an industry where folks whose job it is to get this stuff right often face a lack of support externally and even internally. Lastly, we've been talking about this beginner's guide to tough conversations at work. And you can find that at inclusive.co on our website, along with a bunch of other super helpful resources. And you can also, if you've got specific questions about a project you're working on or a resource, you can also reach out to us directly through that website, or of course, hit me up on LinkedIn because I live here. And that is it. We will be back next week as promised, presenting around another set of guidelines for a different aspect of this. Again, we'll also be having guests, so look for that, get excited about it. But for now, thanks again for joining, and we'll see you next